great around them.
Thank you, Helen. Dr. Helen Jacobi, Vicar of St Matthew in the city. Just quickly, a big morning for News Hub with its New Look AM show. I don't know if you saw it. It doesn't matter if you didn't. There'll be many opportunities. No, neither of you did. A lot of effort has gone into the TV3 relaunch. And the word 3 now has, it's written out as a word with a equal sign in the middle. Before I just asked Jane Barron, TV3, it's got clear energy and zaniness, hasn't it? It tries hard. It's got very talented presenters. Mm-hmm. That has never been thoroughly reflected in ratings, and I wonder if you have any thoughts as to why.
Okay, here's my theory. I can remember the day that TV3 started, because it was the day that I left to go and live in the United States, which I referred to earlier, in 1989. And remember they had Philip Sherry to read the news. Remember he was their big name signing, very serious man with the eyebrows. And I think back in those days, when you turned on the TV, it automatically went to Channel 1.
You think that's still the case?
No, I'm not saying it's still the case necessarily, but I reckon that...
This is your old Philips K9, is it?
It is, absolutely.
Right.
But I reckon they've never kind of got over that. The fact that it's 3 and not 1 or 2. I mean, that sounds ridiculous, but...
We're talking about generational change. I mean, that is, nearly 30 years ago?
It is, well, But I don't know. I mean, come on, putting an equal sign for an E, for goodness sake. Grow up. Jeez.
Tell us what you really think about that. What do you reckon?
Well, I think it's one of these stories which actually the horse has bolted, because the way most people are taking their news these days is not through TV1 or TV3. They are sourcing it from all over the place. I just watch my own children. I watch How I Take News now, and it's via app. It's BBC Sport, it's Guardian, it's TV1, it's TV3. I probably even don't know the source of the news. And I think that's increasingly going to be the pattern that we see just coming more and more commonplace.
Yeah.
Television critic Jane Barron kindly joining us. Hello, Jane.
Hi.
Well, you were quite complimentary towards the new show this morning. Do you think that the rebranding is going to turn the tide at all?
Look, I think I was surprised at how much it was business as usual. I mean, even the lineup of the sports presenter, newsreader, and Duncan, they were same positions as the old crew. So they had spent no money on the format, on the new format, on the reboot. So I think they're going to blow their budget on the project, which is happening very soon next week. So I just thought, wow, there was a sort of a board with some colourful pastel design behind Duncan Garner, who was, dressed in the blue and pink that Paul Henry used to favour. And he was much more democratic with his power sharing. He, in fact, Mark Richardson got quite a lot of quips and opining but they had the same old thing: 5 lists, 5 things you don't need to know. The people on the panel were the same people. Paul Henry's daughter was even sort of moseying around the shop floor, and I just thought, well, I wonder if this is really going to work. People might have become quite excited to think, what are we going to see in the new show? And they would have thought, wow, it's just same without Paul Henry, who is the controversial, let's see what's going to happen if he's going to do something strange today or odd or funny.
All right, thank you, Jane, and we shall see what we shall see. And we have no time to talk about it any longer anyway. Chris Clark, thank you very much. Alan Blackman, you too.
Thanks, Jim.
That's the panel for another day. Thanks for your company, everybody. And we're standing by now for Checkpoints with John Campbell.
Kia ora everyone. Tonight a busy program. A state of emergency is declared in the Hastings district. One large fire burning out of control. Some other smaller fires too. We'll go there live for the latest. We'll hear from firefighters across the Tasman too, where there are some very big fires burning. More anxious times for the Project Jonah crew at Farewell Spit. A pod of about 200 more whales is threatening to come ashore. Everyone's desperately hoping they don't. An attempted abduction in central Auckland. Police are going to update us on that at 5:30. And a Black Power member who suffered abuse in state care accuses the government of never taking responsibility for it. A very busy checkpoint. Do stay with us. We'll be back after the news with Katrina at 5.
RNZ News at 5. Kia ora, good evening. Ko Katrina Batten tēnei. 3 large fires are burning in rural Hawke's Bay. The most active is blazing over 130 hectares on Waimarama Road, above the Tukituki River. At least one house has been destroyed and people on Craggy Range Road are currently being evacuated. About 700 people are without power, including people at Waimarama and Ocean Beach. The power company Unison was asked to switch off power by the fire service at around 12 this afternoon. Waimarama Road is being used as a fire break, but a school bus and 80 cars have been allowed out of Waimarama Beach under escort. The owner of Tom's Cottages, Van Howard, was in a position to see the fire.
It's just gone straight up the sides of the hills. It's now just encroaching on the Craggy Range forest. It looks to me as if it's covering an area from where we can see of about 10 hectares, and we understand that 2 houses have been burned out.
Van Howard. Welfare centres are being set up in Waimarama and Havelock North, and residents of Waimarama and Ocean Beach are being told to conserve water. There's another scrub fire in Colin White Road near Tahoke and a third one near Riapia Stream, northeast of Puketitiri. A woman has been injured jumping out of a moving car after the driver tried to abduct her in central Auckland. The police say an unknown man forced her into the car while she was walking along Ian McKinnon Drive. Sharon Brett Kelly reports.
The police say the woman jumped out of the car in nearby Copeland Street, and a witness who saw it called 111. The woman is in hospital in a moderate condition and detectives are with her. The driver and the car are missing. The police say it is believed to be a grey or silver mid-sized SUV, similar to a RAV4 or Honda CR-V. They believe only the driver was in the car and they have no description of him. This is Sharon Brett Kelly.
The government says it will not support the domestic violence leave bill, but it's not dead in the water yet. 2 of the government's support parties have already decided to back it. Anusha Bradley reports.
The Māori Party and the ACT Party say they will support the bill at its first reading on Wednesday. New Zealand First says it's undecided, and United Future won't say how it plans to vote. The bill would give victims of domestic abuse 10 days of paid leave, as well as requiring employers to refer staff to support services. The Minister for Workplace Relations, Michael Woodhouse, says while the government is sympathetic to the aims of the bill, the extra leave would have significant costs attached to it. He says the bill seeks to remedy something that's already addressed by existing health and safety legislation. Ko Anusha Bradley Aho.
The Auckland District Health Board has recognised the women affected in what became known as the unfortunate experiment at National Women's Hospital. Herbert Green's study followed women with major cervical abnormalities without definitively treating them and without their knowledge or consent during the 1960s, 70s and 80s. About 70 of the women in the study developed cancer and more than half of them have died. The Auckland District Health Board's Chief Medical Officer, Margaret Wilshire, says in a statement no amount of compensation the women received at the time makes up for their stress and distress. She says she expresses her deepest sympathy for everything they went through at the time and subsequent to that. She says the District Health Board will organise a ceremony to remember the impact of these events, which is expected to be in May. Officials in Northern California have ordered thousands of residents near the 700-foot-high Oroville Dam to evacuate the area after an emergency spillway severely eroded. The California Department of Water Resources says the spillway could fail in the next few hours, unleashing uncontrolled floodwaters from Lake Oroville behind the dam, which is the tallest in the US. The order directly affects the 16,000 residents of the nearby town of Oroville. Spokesman Doug Carlson says the department is now attempting to prevent the spillway eroding.
There is a contingency plan being put into action right now to use helicopters to drop rocks in that area of the spillway that appears to have been eroding unexpectedly. If this contingency plan works and the helicoptered in rocks stop the flow, then we may in fact escape this significant potential danger to public safety.
Northern California official Doug Carlson. It's 5:05. To sport, the Crusader and All Black Israel Dag says the arrival of his first child was the driving factor behind his decision to stay in New Zealand. Dag has re-signed with New Zealand Rugby through to the 2019 World Cup in Japan. The 28-year-old was dumped from the 2015 World Cup team due to a lack of form, but flourished for the All Blacks at both wing and fullback last year. Just last week, Highlanders fullback Ben Smith re-signed through to the 2019 World Cup as well. Dag says the decision ultimately came down to family.
Taking my son over there, he would have been only about 4 months old, no support for my wife and myself, so that's probably the biggest factor. And I love New Zealand, I love playing footy here. I feel like I'm only 28, going on 29 this year. I feel like I've got more juice in these legs.
Israel Dag. Canberra Stadium will host this year's Anzac Rugby League test between New Zealand and Australia. The New Zealand women's team will face the Australian Jillaroos in the curtain raiser. It'll be the final match between the Kiwis and Kangaroos before this year's World Cup. And New Zealand golfer Tim Wilkinson has had a strong finish at the Pebble Beach Pro-Am on the PGA Tour. The left-hander carded a 2 under 70 in his final round to finish in a tie for 39th at 4 under. American Jordan Spieth won the tournament by 4 shots to claim his 9th PGA Tour title. That's the news.
It's not political.
At community events, I always think if people are enjoying themselves, there's no need to be political if you're just there to meet them.
A sad tale.
I don't recall ever being at a stranding of this magnitude.
A must-watch.
It has really become sort of the voice of the opposition, I guess, or the resistance, people are calling it now. It really has taken on Trump in a full-throated way.
A must-listen. Guy Aspinall and Susie Ferguson, morning reports, weekdays from 6. Then on 9 to noon, the drugs charity from Finland that wants to offer free testing services via the dark web to combat counterfeit and tainted drugs. And after 10, Serene Fox on the Indigenous communities at the front line of resistance, including the Standing Rock Dakota pipeline protests. Join me, Catherine Ryan, on 9 to noon after Morning Report on RNZ National.
Met Service weather through to midnight tomorrow: Northland, Auckland, Coromandel and Bay of Plenty. Mostly cloudy, occasional rain or drizzle developing this evening. Gisborne to Wairarapa, mainly fine, a few spots of rain in central Hawke's Bay and Wairarapa today. Hawke's Bay and Gisborne tomorrow. Waikato, Waitomo, Taupo and Taumaranui, occasional rain, possibly heavy for a time tomorrow morning, easing to a few showers tomorrow afternoon. Taranaki and Taihape to Wellington, fine spells increasing this afternoon with remaining rain in Taranaki and Taihape clearing. A few showers tomorrow, mainly in the afternoon. Nelson and Marlborough mainly fine, brief rain tomorrow morning. Bulla to Fiordland, showers, some heavy with possible thunderstorms from Westland southwards today. Some heavy showers for Fiordland tomorrow. Canterbury, fine spells and a few showers. Otago and Southland, showers, some heavy with possible thunderstorms about eastern Otago today. Fine spells increasing inland and in the east tomorrow. The Chatham Islands mostly cloudy, showers this afternoon and again late tomorrow. It's 5:08 and you're listening to Checkpoint.
Thanks, Katrina. Welcome to the program, everyone. A very busy Checkpoint tonight at 5:30. Auckland Police are having a media conference with the latest on what looks like an attempted abduction thwarted when a woman jumped out of a moving car in central Auckland. Sharon Brett Kelly will be there for us. A reminder, a witness says the woman jumped from a grey or silver mid-sized SUV similar to a RAV4 or a Honda CR-V. We will have more on that with the police at 5:30, which is 22 minutes away. Also tonight, are more whales heading for shore at Farewell Spit? We're going to talk to Project Jonah in about 10 or 15 minutes, but it's sounding like bad news at Farewell Spit. But we're beginning in Hawke's Bay. This is the latest from Civil Defence in the region there. A state of emergency has been declared in the Hastings district. A fire on Waimarama Road remains the biggest concern to Civil Defence. That road is now closed and power has been turned off to Waimarama and Ocean Beach. But at this stage, that's just precautionary. There are other fires burning. Rural Fire Incident Controller John Sutton has been deployed to Hastings and joins me now with the latest. I think, John, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hello, good to talk to you. Boy, you guys are being pushed there. All crews are now working, I understand. How many fires are you fighting?
At the peak today, we had 5 at the same time. The good news is that we're able to report that we've got 3 in, I think, just in recent times, the 4th one contained. That doesn't mean to say that they're entirely safe. They all have hot spots within the perimeter, which in the right conditions can manifest and run again. But the 5th fire, that's the one at Waimarama Road, that you spoke about is the one that's given us the most concerns. Fairly complex.
Yeah, it's a big burn, isn't it? And dry land through there. Roughly, John, how much area do you think that's covering now, that fire?
That is around about 50 hectares, John, but considering it only started 11 this morning, in a couple of hours, it went from nothing to 50 hectares in the matter of probably 3.5 hours. So it spread at an enormous rate.
Yeah, and so how are you fighting that? You got choppers up and fire engines all around it?
Yes, we're working very closely with the New Zealand Fire Service. They've been successful. They had a fire of their own, which they successfully extinguished today. The sad thing is that we've lost one house during the day. Several residents were evacuated, but the good news is that it's looking quite highly probable that Waimarama Road could be opened later this evening, and there's a possibility that at least some of the evacuees will be able to return to their homes.
That's good news. What's the weather like? Because it's been very, very hot there. What's it like this evening?
It's the wind's abated. There still is a wind, and the temperature has dropped. At its peak today, we were in the low 30s. The temperature, the humidity was down to 40, and we were getting sustained winds at 40 kilometres per hour, gusting up to 60, and that's what caused the problem.
Thanks, John. We really appreciate it. Rural Fire Incident Controller John Sutton with the latest there. So, as you heard, there were 5 fires being fought at one stage. 4 of them are now under control. That big one near Waimarama, actually on the road from Waimarama back towards town, is still burning. John Watts was down on the Ocean Beach Waimarama coastline this morning. That road out from Waimarama is the one that's now closed, although John Sutton was saying that it will be opening, all things going well, later this evening. As they were driving back inland, John Watts and his wife, on the road towards Napier, Hastings and Havelock North, they could smell smoke, but they couldn't see any flames. Not at first, anyway.
But then we carried on and drove across the Tukituki River, and at the end of the Waimarama Bridge there, across the Tukituki River, we stopped and we looked back, and it was a horrible sight. And but, I don't know, the photographer and me, I had a camera with me, so I got out the camera and clicked up quite a few photos of the whole event. And from what started off as a beautiful home, landed up as a blazing wreck, And it reminded me very much about a Nigel Latta program on TV not so long ago, when he put a whole house alight or something like that. And, it was really horrible to see.
Well, just burning so fast.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's farmland through there, and it's dry this time of year, isn't it?
Yeah. It's all golden at the moment, or blonde, whatever you like to call it. But of course, the grass fire jumps very quickly now. And my wife remarked on it to say, hey, it's strange how from a bit of grass fire, a whole house can go up in smoke. So...
And this is what they're seeing in Australia too, because you're having warm temperatures there, 30 degrees plus, and pretty strong winds, right? So it was just pushing everything along.
It's the wind that's the killer. Without the wind, it would have been contained. They probably could have contained it with a couple of garden hoses.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I was really impressed about was seeing all these helicopters with their monsoon buckets going up there, because it must be quite horrible to fly at the moment because of the strong wind, and then to have 300 kgs of water slung below your machine. To me, they are heroes.
And John, you, from the photos, looked like you were quite close, and the fire was obviously moving pretty fast.
Yes, it was.
Did it ever start coming towards you?
No. At some stage it did, but then the wind seemed to pick it up again and blow it away from us. So we were sort of on the side where we were looking at the hillside with the wind behind us. But if you go on Google Maps and you look at where this house was, behind there are there's quite a forest block.
Yeah, I know where you are. You're not too far away where you were standing that bridge from the Craggy Range Vineyard there, are you?
No, that's right too.
Yeah, and Havelock North is around the corner, really, I suppose a few K away.
Probably another 10 minutes away.
Yeah.
But, that would be not a problem because that wind all coming from Havelock North, so... No, it was. I don't hope to experience that again. That's for sure.
What, really scary?
Yeah. Well, you feel for those people because, if I don't know what pictures you looked at. I just put some of mine on Facebook.
Yeah.
But if you look at that close-up of the house, there's nothing left. So, people's not only possessions that can be replaced, but your memories. That's the part that hurts. So your photos and all those sort of things.
John Watsu was driving home when he smelt smoke, stopped to look behind him and saw that blaze burning very fast and very hard, destroying a rather large home on farmland very close to where he was standing. They were his photographs we were running as he was talking. As we go to air tonight, the Department of Conservation, we're heading south now, is monitoring a pod of about 200 pilot whales. You're not going to believe this. They're in danger of restranding in the sea off Taupata Point on the western side of Golden Bay. They are believed to be the same whales that were in the bay yesterday. Joining us now live is Louisa Hawkes from Project Jonah. Louisa, are you there?
Hi, John.
Hi. Look, boy, you must just be despairing. High tide is at 6 o'clock. What are the whales doing?
So at the moment they are milling around in the bay, a little closer to shore than we would like. Doc have got some boats on the water to try and deter them if they do look like they are going to head in, and they've also got some people on the ground try and do their best to deter them.
It's impossible to know this, of course, because pilot whales move fast and they come and go, but do you believe they were the same whales that were seen yesterday a little bit further around the coast?
Yes, we think that they are from the same pod. That's our thought.
And so do you think some of these are actually whales that were momentarily stranded and went back out to sea at Farewell Spit?
Yes, that's my thoughts at the moment. And yesterday we did follow the pod out quite far, about 5.5 kilometres offshore. Doc were with them in boats and they were swimming strongly towards Separation Point, which was a really good sign. So we're quite surprised to see them back in the bay today. But that's pilot whales for you.
Yeah, surprised and bitterly disappointed, I imagine. So you're working hard to persuade them not to come closer to shore. What, making noises and running boats back and forth and just trying to set up some kind of barrier between them and the beach?
Yeah, that's entirely correct. Doc have got some boats in the water and they're doing their best to try and keep those whales out in deeper water. There are volunteers on the beach. We have put our marine mammal medics from Christchurch, from the Nelson Tasman region, and we've also put medics from Wellington on standby, just in case these whales do start to strand and we can start getting people on site really quickly.
Goodness gracious me, so you're getting volunteers ready and you're preparing an operation for the worst possible scenario, which is the whales coming into shore.
That's right. At the moment, people aren't needed, but as you've probably seen the last couple of days, things do change quickly.
Yeah, they do.
So we're just asking people to be prepared, and we'll keep the public updated through our Facebook page, but more news will be available after high tide at 6 o'clock.
Thanks so much. We'll update people after 6 o'clock too. Thanks, Louisa. We really appreciate it. So obviously everyone has their fingers crossed that roughly 200 whales will not beach. They've moved round to Taupata Point now, and everyone's working very hard to keep them out at sea. High tide, which is the danger time, is at 6 o'clock. So obviously we'll update you after the 6 o'clock news. You're with Checkpoint on RNZ. Thank you for being with us. It's 19 minutes past 5. Coming up on the program, more than 80 fires continue to burn across New South Wales. We speak to the mayor of one of the affected areas. In fact, we've got two mayors on tonight, one very shortly and one after 6. And we'll bring you details from this police media conference following an attempted abduction in central Auckland. A woman jumped out of a moving car. It looks like she did so to thwart an abduction. Police are going to update us on exactly the details that they can give us in about 10 or 15 minutes. We are there. But let's go to Australia now. If this is hell, I never want to be there, said one volunteer firefighter as more than 80 fires continue to burn across New South Wales today. A number of the largest blazes are still out of control. They're mostly in the state's central west region. Some of the worst damage has been around the town of Dunedin, roughly 350 kilometres northwest of Sydney, inland obviously. Conditions have now eased in most areas, but the Rural Fire Service, the RFS, says the threat is far from over. The heat wave that has made the fire conditions so extreme has also smashed temperature records right across New South Wales state. Here's the ABC's Penny Timms.
The most serious of the fires still burning in New South Wales are in the Warrumbungle Shire in the state's central west. Homes and livestock have been lost, and volunteer firefighters like Mel McMaster are exhausted.
We've sort of had nearly 48 hours or 2 hours sleep. Hundreds and hundreds of people in the same situation that just tried their desperate to save whatever they could save. Friends have lost everything, stock, houses. And I don't know, I was like, when I came home last night, I said, if this is hell, I never want to go there. It's something that's just almost, you can't describe it. The miracle is, as far as I know, there's no loss of life, which I don't know how.
Shane Fitzsimmons is the RFS Commissioner. He says most of the small town of Urabari, which sits between Dunedin and Merriwa, appears to have been wiped out.
Yes, we have got indications and we've undertaken some preliminary assessments. The community of Urabari has been heavily impacted by fire and I would suggest most buildings in the community of Urabari are damaged and or destroyed.
Peter Shinton is the Warrumbungle Mayor and says the situation in the region remains fragile.
Well, I'm at Coolah right now and there's heavy smoke right through the area. I don't know how long some of these roads will be open. It's getting that heavy.
Many areas are without power and he says there's a lot of confusion because of a lack of communication.
It's confusion. Like when you've got no power, you can imagine it's a desperate thing. People have moved into the town to try and keep in front of the fire, but there's very little information.
Attention has now turned to building containment lines to try to ward off future threats. Further north, the Rural Fire Service also believes homes have been lost in fires around Pappenborough, west of Port Macquarie in the state's mid-north coast. It comes after a weekend of record-breaking weather across New South Wales. Stephen Lillette is the acting New South Wales Regional Director with the Weather Bureau.
New South Wales recorded an average temperature across the whole of the landmass of 44.02 degrees on Saturday, following a 43-degree reading on Friday. This smashes the previous record of 41.99 degrees recorded in February of 1939.
Meanwhile, New South Wales Police say 3 people aged 13, 32 and 40 have been charged with lighting fires and will face court today.
Penny Timms with that report. You would have heard the Mayor of Warrumbungle Shire in that report from the ABC. Since Penny filed that story, Peter Shinton has seen more of the fire damage. We called him a short time ago and he pulled over to take our call on a road in a valley broadly between 2 of the fires.
I'm just come out of the fire ground and we've seen some of the houses that have been destroyed and we didn't see any livestock dead, but there's a lot of country being burned.
And so how big is the fire now?
It's now 50,000 hectares and it's still actively burning. There's quite a strong wind. I'm standing in it now and there's no smoke haze here. We're heading towards the township of Dunedin. We've just left Coolah and we drove through the fire, so it's quite active in some parts there, but
You drove through the fire. Can you describe that?
Yeah, look, all of the valley country seems to have survived in most cases. A lot of stock are concentrated in areas, closer to the roads, but all the hill country is burning now. It's being fanned by it's quite a strong sou'wester at the present moment, so it's pushing the fire in a northeasterly direction away from Coolah, but up into the Coolah tops, up towards the national park.
And what sort of temperatures have you got there at the moment? It's cooled down slightly, hasn't it?
Oh yeah, yesterday it was 43 and winds gusting up to 75 kilometres an hour, but today the wind is about 28. Temperatures, I think it's 32, I think it is now. So
it's still pretty warm, isn't it? And that's dry land through there.
Yeah. But humidity's up, so which is good, bad for fires. So, So we're, hopefully today we can get some containment lines around the active edge of the fire.
And the Rural Fire Service, the RFS, are doing great work. Are you worried about entire communities? Are there towns, villages really, around there under threat?
Well, it looks, one of the items that came up this morning was, gee, that wind is gusting. One of the comments that came up this morning was that we're one village less than we had. I think 7 of the 9 houses that were in the village have been destroyed. And the assessment teams are going in there now.
Look, I know you're driving and people want to see you and you want to be there to find out what's going on, so we really appreciate you pulling over to talk to Radio New Zealand. One final question. Have you any sense of what's causing these fires? Reports that some have been deliberately started. Are they where you are or are they elsewhere? Do you know what's starting them?
No, this particular one, we're not sure. We know pretty closely where the ignition point was, but it's a forensic examination. The forensic teams have to come in because there's been such huge property loss and stock loss, so they'll be making a report later for the coroner.
How are the people you've been talking to?
Emotions are all over the place, and that's why we don't like to release information that we've sourced. But most people have heard from firefighters what's standing and what's not. So, there's, like I say, emotions are all over the place. People got out with clothes on their back in some cases. In other cases, they heeded the warnings and, made good preparations and got out with at least their clothes. But God only knows what's happened to their livestock.
That's Peter Shinton, who is the Mayor of Warrumbungle Shire, talking to us. He pulled over to take the call on the side of the road. Effectively, between 2 of the fires, 50,000 hectares has burnt or is burning. After 6 o'clock, we will talk to the Mayor of the neighbouring shire. 5:27. You're with Checkpoint on RNZ. The woman charged over a radical attack on a Muslim woman in Huntly has pleaded guilty. We're going to be there in about a minute, but a man is on the run in central Auckland this evening after he allegedly tried to abduct a woman. Police say a woman was forced into a car by an unknown man while walking along Ian McKinnon Drive. Now, for those of you who don't know Auckland, that's just at the southern end of the CBD. She jumped out on nearby Copeland Street. A short time ago, we spoke to a resident of Copeland Street. She said the street still has police around it.
They just asked if I've seen anything unusual today, and I don't think I did. They wouldn't really disclose any information. I've tried asking questions, is there a burglary or anything like that, just to be safe. But they were just saying that there's been an incident that happened. Yeah, but they wouldn't really say much. Every car that has sort of drove up the road has stopped and spoken to the police. I think they've just stopped any pedestrians or anyone by the side just to get questions. It kind of freaky as well because our house is double story and there is a back door, and I'm just trying to lock everything up.
That's a resident of Copeland Street talking to our reporter Zach Fleming. The police are due to hold a media conference any moment. Our reporter Sharon Brett Kelly is there. We will update you on what is happening with that attempted abduction and what the police know about it. Now, as I said, the woman charged over a racially charged attack on a Muslim woman in Huntly has pleaded guilty. Mepara Khan posted a video online which showed a woman yelling expletives and throwing beer cans at her and her friends who were Muslim and wearing hijabs. A 27-year-old woman from Auckland was arrested and a short time ago pleaded guilty in the Hamilton District Court to charges of assault with a weapon and offensive language. So guilty pleas have just been entered in the Hamilton District Court. For the residents of Huntly, the attack came as a nasty surprise, of course. Our reporter Sarah Robson went to talk to locals there earlier today.
There's more to Huntly than just a State Highway 1 rest area. Turn off the highway and you'll find a bustling shopping street where it's becoming increasingly hard to find a car park. There are 5 different bakeries selling pies and bread rolls to hungry locals and visitors alike. There's a thriving op shop, which is a point of pride for the community, 2 butcheries and a handful of small grocery stores. And the locals agree that incidents like the one that took place over the weekend have no place here. Philippa and Yana work at a maternity and baby store on Main Street. Philippa says people shouldn't judge Huntly by this one incident.
I feel like Huntly doesn't deserve to give such a bad name. You know, like people assume that because she was racist in Huntly, that it's linked to Huntly and all the environment and the people in the community here.
Yana has lived in Huntly her whole life. She admits it's got its problems, but it's a good place to live and work.
It's not that bad. We just have a really bad name.
So what's Huntly really like?
It's a nice place.
It's like a family.
Yeah.
You know, like it's a community that are very close and we're very intertwined. Everyone knows everyone. It's a small town, you know. So we do get along. And there is bad sides and there is good sides, you know, like any town. But the bad side's just a little bit bad than normal and people think it's worse than what it is.
Murray Allen and his wife Jennifer own a fabric shop just down the street. They've been living in Huntly for decades and say they're disappointed that the spotlight is on the town once again.
We're annoyed that Huntly's name is being promoted as being the centre of it when it's a State Highway 1 comfort stop and there are not locals involved. The Aucklanders are disappointed about that.
Murray Allen says people have a poor perception of what Huntly's like because they don't turn off State Highway 1.
That's because people are passing through, they see the backs of the shops, which are not very pleasant. They see the railway line, but they don't go into the town and see the beautiful lake we've got just 200 metres across from the main road.
Norm was born and raised in Huntly but has just come back to live in the town after 45 years away. He says while things have changed, a lot has remained the same, including the sense of community.
Huntly's about family and togetherness. We're cross-culture, you know, in a lot of aspects, in sport, in general way of life, and we seem to get on. I mean, you walk down the street, you've had a look. Yeah, we tend to get on, and Huntly's it's always been, even as far back as my time, it was always been robust, but we were always together.
I asked Norm why people should stop in Huntly.
Oh, you get a good feed. you got 33 eateries here. We've counted it up, 33 eateries, so why not stop? But I mean, for that incident that happened, I guess they're not going to stop here no more.
In Huntly for Checkpoint, Sarah Robson, aho.
5:32 and a half, you're with Checkpoint on RNZ. Just to clarify, the 27-year-old woman who did plead guilty to those charges, and I'm sure many of you have seen that footage, was indeed from Auckland. She pleaded guilty in the Hamilton District Court to charges of assault with a weapon and offensive language. After Katrina and the headlines, the latest from the police media conference following the attempted abduction of a woman in central Auckland. And a Black Power member who suffered abuse in state care accuses the government of never taking responsibility for this stuff. But first, here is Katrina with the headlines.
3 large fires are burning in rural Hawke's Bay. The most active is blazing on Waimarama Road above the Tukituki River. At least one house has been destroyed and people on Craggy Range Road are currently being evacuated. The Rural Fire Incident Controller John Sutton told Checkpoint the blaze is enormous and went from nothing to covering 50 hectares in just over 3 hours. Mr Sutton says Waimarama Road may be able to reopen to the public later tonight. The Hastings District Council says more than 100 cars and 2 busloads of children were evacuated from Waimarama. A woman has pleaded guilty to assault following a racial attack on a Muslim woman in Huntly on Saturday. Megan Walton pleaded guilty to 2 charges of assault and 1 charge of behaving in an insulting manner in a public place. The charges were laid after Muslim New Zealander Mepara Khan posted video of the incident on social media. A woman has been injured jumping out of a moving car after the driver tried to abduct her in central Auckland. The police say she was forced into the car by an unknown man while walking along Ian McKinnon Drive just before 2 o'clock this afternoon. They say she jumped out in nearby Copeland Street and a witness who saw it called 111. The woman is in hospital in a moderate condition. The Department of Conservation says conditions are too rough in Golden Bay to monitor by boat a pod of around 200 pilot whales at risk of stranding. The area is near Puponga, which is south of the site of the weekend strandings. Power is expected to be restored to nearly 300 homes and businesses between Pukerua Bay and Plimmerton, north of Wellington, by 7 p.m. after a line came down. Earlier in the afternoon, power cuts around Upper Hutt hit more than 600 properties. Most have been reconnected, and Wellington Electricity says the rest should be fixed by early evening. A major road to Auckland Airport is now open after it was closed due to a ruptured gas main earlier this afternoon. The transport agency says Kirkbride Road is open and traffic is returning to normal. However, it says there may still be delays. Those are the headlines. I'll be back at 6.
Thanks, Katrina. Just standing by for the police media conference on the attempted abduction in Auckland. Let's go to Wellington to do some business news before then. Jonathan Mitchell joining us this week. Hi, Jonathan. Lovely to see you. The earnings season is in full swing, of course. By earnings, we mean reporting, I suppose. The highlight today, if you're looking at company size, I think, was power company Contact Energy.
Evening, John. Well, yes, a year ago, Contact was hit by large asset write-downs and was facing a fairly flat outlook. They've reported their first half result, 6 months ended December, with a net profit of $96 million, compares with a loss in the previous period of $116 million. There were some key contributors to this. Contact cut costs because of the warmer weather, lowering demand for energy, and above average rainfall boost the hydro lakes and resulted in cheaper power. But one key thing that's come up and is really industry-wide in this energy sector is the tough competition and the discounting that's going on, resulting in quite tight margins. And this came through again, and in the period they've reported today, they lost about 1,000 customers in just 6 months. So a solution they've put forward at the results conference this morning was they talked a lot about boosting their retail business and mentioned investing in new data and technology, and that's something they'll look into in the near term.
Thanks, Jonathan. There's all sorts of ways of measuring the health of the economy, and one of them is whether people are spending or not, because it means that they feel confident and it means that they think they've got some disposable income, right? And a measure of this is electronic card spending numbers.
That's right. January data out today. This data is quite important. It represents about 2/3 of total retail sales, and this is the spending on the debit, credit and charge cards. Now, the 2.7% jump in January was followed a fairly flat December and November result, and it's the strongest monthly result since 2006, so over a decade. So certainly puts 2017 on a strong footing for this retail sector. And what do people spend their money on? Well, they feel confident, obviously, in a low interest rate environment to spend on items around the home. Furniture came through, appliances, clothing, and the more volatile fuel, which bounces around month to month. Yeah. Economists actually have been telling us today that we're in for a fairly solid year in this space. We've got a population growing, tourists coming in, and employment on the up. But one thing that was highlighted, though, was, as I mentioned before, the mortgage interest rates. Recently, we've seen banks up their mortgage rates, so that may sort of moderate growth in retail spending over the coming months.
Thanks, Jonathan. What happened on the markets today?
Well, the top 50 index, a fairly steady day for the top 50 index and the dollar overall, climbing 31 points to 7136, and the dollar is trading at 72 US cents and 94 Australian. John.
Thanks very much indeed, Jonathan Mitchell, our business reporter, live from Wellington. It's 5:38, or 21 and a half minutes to 6. We are waiting for the latest from this media conference about an attempted abduction in central Auckland. While we wait to hear from Sharon Brett Kelly, who is attending it, let's hear from Aaron Smale to Manikotahi. A survivor of a state-run boys' home says when he arrived at Koheteri near Levin in 1981, a welcoming committee threw a blanket over his head and stomped on him and bashed him. The abuse inflicted upon LB Eperi is no surprise to many of the 100,000 children taken into state care between the late 1950s to the early 1990s. LB Eperi is a Black Power member. He's 50 years old and he agreed to be interviewed as part of the Waida Te Manikotahi investigation into state care and how it failed so many New Zealand children. Aaron Smale does pick up his story.
It's important to know LB Eperi didn't grow up in a dysfunctional, violent home. He is one of 4 brothers who grew up with 2 working parents. He doesn't recall how he ended up in state care, but his older brother was already there and he wanted to be with him. It's in these state homes they all learned and experienced violence.
From there I progressed. I took a lot of bashings in there from staff. When we used to run away all the time, they used to put us in the secure block, but before they put us in the secure block, they used to bash us. It became normal for us, so we used to run away more. And in the end, we ended up in Levin, in Koitere. And I think I spent 10 months there. And in that time up there, got into numerous fights, numerous bashings. When you first go in there, you get a bash straight away, you get stomped. Everybody that went in there got stomped. What I mean by that, you got stomped, is that they had a welcoming committee. And then they just chuck a blanket over you so you don't see who it is, and then you just get bashed up.
Mr. Epere says after a period of time being bashed, he learnt to become the basher. As a senior member of the Black Power, he reflects on his time in state care and describes the abuse he received by boys and staff as horrendous.
So these things that we learnt along the way, so once it was perpetrated on us, then we started doing it, because we think it's the normal thing to do. There was one time I ended up at up the secure block. I think I was up there for 2-3 weeks, and I was up there for kicking one of the other trainees in the head. We got into a bit of an argument, and then I just got up and kicked him in the head. And then I got sent up there for 3 weeks, and it wasn't a nice experience. Secure block was right at the end. With when we were up in Koitere, it was a little wee block. I think it might have housed about, it's probably 9 or 12 at a time. A usual daily routine would be up first thing in the morning. It used to be PT for an hour. If you couldn't handle that PT, you got a hiding. We used to have to do that three times a day. And the amount of abuse that got perpetrated on us, that was dished out to us was horrendous, actually. I guess for me it just gave me a platform for when I got older, that violence was okay to do.
It's believed about 100,000 children were taken into state care during a 40-year period. The rate of Māori in some of the homes was as high as 80 to 100%.
After I got out of those places, you could sit there and watch somebody get a hiding and you would think nothing about it. But anybody else that'd be looking at it, they'd never seen violence in their life or hadn't had it in their life, would sit there and freak out. And I was just sitting there and I'm going, well, what's the problem? He's only getting a hiding. And these are these things that we learnt when we were younger, how to take a hiding and how to give a hiding. And for me, I guess that I could probably say that most gang members now either went through those places and are still gang members now or were gang members.
When Albie Epere draws a line to his gang life, he thinks the forced separation from his family and the extreme violence he experienced led him to feel comfortable inside the Black Power where others shared the same experiences. With gang life came prison.
Right through the 80s, the 90s, there wasn't a year that I wasn't in prison. From probably about 83 to about 2000, there wasn't a year I wasn't in there. And I've only just stopped going to prison since 2008.
Since 2009?
2008. And I'll probably say I've done about 25 years all up in the jail system.
But he's a grandfather now and he wants to make changes.
For me now, it's about undoing what I learnt. I think that's a personal thing for myself, to make me a better person. Like for me now, I'm 50 now. I've got a partner. I had 7 kids. I've got 18 grandchildren. And like for me, for now, it's not about me now. It's about what I leave behind. And if I carry on what I'm doing now, like all my old stuff of what I used to do, then I'm not going to leave them much.
The Human Rights Commission is seeking an inquiry into abuse and neglect in state institutions. The Commission has written an open letter to Bill English, calling for the government to order an inquiry and apologise for the abuse. Mr. Epere is right behind it.
I would like them to take responsibility for their actions.
In recent years, Mr. Epere has received a payment of $20,000 from the government for the mistreatment he endured, but says that doesn't mean it's enough.
I'd like to ask politicians to take responsibility because we're a byproduct of their system. And that's what they need to take responsibility for, is their actions in the whole thing. You know? We took responsibility for our actions for when we used to beat people up and we went to jail for it. That's what I'd like to say to them. You know, where's your responsibility in it? Or do you just sweep it under the carpet like everything else?
Mr. Epere says people shouldn't be surprised about the level of violence which stems from state care. He says when you lock a dog in a cage and let him out, he's going to rip everything apart. For Checkpoint, call Aaron Smautine.
Aaron's interview with LB Epere is part of a broader Te Mana Kōrahi investigation into state care. We here at Checkpoint would love to hear from you if you were at Koheteri, which is where LB was, or had a similar experience somewhere else as a ward of the state. Do please get in contact. checkpoint@radionz.co.nz is the email address, is probably best. It's 40 minutes to 6. A woman has jumped out of a moving car after the driver tried to abduct her in central Auckland this afternoon. The police say she'd been forced into the car by an unknown man while walking along Ian McKinnon Drive. Sharon Brett-Kelly has been at the police media conference outside the Auckland Central Police Station and joins us now. You there, Sharon?
Yes, I am, John.
Hello. What more can you tell us?
Okay, well, at around 10 to 2 this afternoon, the woman who's aged in her mid-20s was walking on Hazlitt Street. So she'd actually turned off Ian McKinnon Drive into Hazlitt Street, which is in Eden Terrace, very close to the city centre. She was walking towards Ponsonby, and she says she saw a couple of parked cars with a man standing next to them. And as she passed them, the man grabbed her from behind and managed to drag her into his car, into the front passenger seat. He then drove off with the woman in the car, but there was a bit of a struggle in the car, and the woman managed to break free, opened the door and jumped out of the car as it was moving on Copeland Street, which is very nearby, just a few streets over. 2 members of the public saw the car take off and headed back to Ian McKinnon Drive. Now, Ian McKinnon Drive is one of the main roads heading into the city. It's at the top end of Dominion Road. The woman was injured. She got a few scrapes and bruises and obviously very distressed. And these people, the 2 witnesses, went to help her and called the police straight away. She's now in Auckland Hospital in a stable condition, and the police are with her.
Because what an utterly terrifying experience. I know that intersection, and there are security cameras there, or CTV cameras, or whatever, whether they're traffic cameras or council cameras, so they will almost certainly have this car on camera. What description did they have of the vehicle, Sharon?
The vehicle itself is described as dark silver or grey. It's a medium-sized SUV, similar to a RAV4 or a Honda CR-V. And now it's being described as very clean inside. And the police have given us also a description of the man, a very clear description, actually. They say he's a Māori or Pacific Islander, aged in his 30s, large build, about 184 centimetres tall, and he's got tattoos on both arms. He was wearing a red and white check shirt with a grey T-shirt underneath. So very clear description. Police are also saying that it's a sexually motivated attack. They won't say why they believe that, but they're very firm on that.
Okay, can you give us the age again? Sorry, Sharon, how old did they think he was roughly?
In his 30s.
Okay, thank you so much. We really appreciate that. Sharon Brett-Kelly, who's just been at the media conference. So a man in his 30s, about 184 centimetres, what's that, just over 6 foot or almost bang on it, wearing a red and black check shirt with a grey T-shirt underneath, described as a Māori or Pacific Islander, driving a silver or grey SUV vehicle in that area this afternoon. Anyone who knows any details, please do contact Auckland Police immediately. Let's change the subject entirely because we've been on air for almost 50 minutes and it's been frantic. So we're going to go to the Baftas. The musical La La Land has won big at Britain's main film awards, the Baftas. Not always a reliable predictor of the Oscars. The Baftas, the Brits have a different kind of taste, although La La Land is picked to do very well at the Academy Awards. It scooped the prize for Best Film, while Emma Stone and Damien Chazelle picked up awards for Best Actress and Best Director, respectively. La La Land won 5 gongs in total, keeping its hot streak in the movie awards season before going to the Oscars later this month. This report from the BBC.
And the Bafta is awarded to Justin Hurwitz's La La Land.
It won for original music, for cinematography,
for La La Land,
for Best Director.
Thank you to the Academy. This is an incredible honor.
For Best Film,
La La Land.
And leading actress.
Emma Stone for La La Land.
Now, this country and the U.S. and the world seems to be going through a bit of a time, just a bit, and in a time that's so divisive, I think it's really special that we were all able to come together tonight thanks to Bafta.
Emma Stone's acceptance speech was in keeping with a generally reflective, earnest tone set by the winners. Some were political. Casey Affleck, winner of the leading actor BAFTA, was confessional.
The reason that I act is because when I was a young kid, my mother would take me to the Al-Anon meetings for children of alcoholics, and it was therapy, but it was acting, and it was, and acting has sort of been that for me ever since.
Dev Patel won Best Supporting Actor for his role playing an adopted child in Lion. Viola Davis won Best Supporting Actress for this powerful performance in Fences, a film about the African-American experience in the 1950s.
Everything that boy do, he do for you. He wants you to say, good job, son. That's all.
I ain't got time for that, Rose. He's alive, he's healthy. He's got to make his own way. I made mine. Ain't nobody gonna hold his hand when he get out there in the world.
Times have changed, Troy. People change. The world changed, and then you can't even see it.
The night finished on a lighter note, courtesy of Mel Brooks, who was awarded a BAFTA fellowship.
I don't think of England, seriously. I don't think of this place as a foreign country. I just think of it as like a vast Brooklyn that just speaks better. That's all. Anyway, bless you. Thank you.
So, next stop, the Oscars, in 2 weeks' time in La La Land.
That report from the BBC, 7.5 to 6. We're going to go now to California. Residents below the tallest dam in the United States near Oroville in Northern California have been urgently ordered to evacuate as the spillway appeared in danger of imminent collapse. The 700-foot dam, what's that, 200 metres, primary spillway developed a large hole a few days ago and began to erode. The California Department of Water Resources says the emergency spillway could fail within the next few hours, unleashing uncontrolled floodwaters from Lake Oroville behind the dam. The order directly affects the 16,000 residents of the nearby town. Spokesman Doug Carlson says the situation is still unfolding, but the threat to the town of Oroville is very real.
We have since Tuesday night been aware of and dealing with a broken main spillway, which is capable, when it's working properly, to run about 150,000 cubic feet per second down it. But because of a gaping hole, 300 feet long, 180 feet wide, perhaps 35 feet deep, that was discovered there, water going down has had a serious degradation on the bottom of the spillway. Tonight's emergency stems from the fact that an emergency spillway, which has never been used in 50 years since the dam was built in 1968, it has been spilling water when the lake level rose to and above 901 feet elevation above sea level. Things are going according to Hoyle, I guess you would want to say, and that has suddenly taken a turn for the worse when erosion below this never-before-used emergency spillway, which is about 1,700 feet long, apparently the erosion started to threaten the integrity of that emergency weir. There is a contingency plan being put into action right now to use helicopters to drop rocks in that area of the spillway that appears to have been eroding unexpectedly. If this contingency plan works and the helicoptered-in rocks stop the flow and protect the land below the flow, then we may in fact escape this significant potential danger to public safety. The concern is that we have another storm arriving late this week, around Thursday. The good news, if there is any at this time about precipitation falling in that area, is that it's likely to fall as snow.
That's Doug Carlson from the California Department of Water Resources. The department stresses it's the spillways that are a problem, not the dam itself. Let's go to Dunedin. If you are often late for work or struggling to get time off, you might be in the wrong industry. In the city, at the country's fastest growing video gaming studio, Rocketworks, there's unlimited leave, no middle managers, and the profits are shared with the workers. It's an approach which could change New Zealand's labour laws. Our Otago Southern reporter Ian Telfer visited the studio's headquarters to find out more.
Dean Hall made his name as the creator of a zombie survival game, DayZ, a global hit. Today he's funneling that success into his own studio, Rocketworks, at a glass building on Dunedin's waterfront. He has 5 games being developed and 40 employees. And even on a Monday morning, there's a buzz in the air.
It's a really cool space. We wanted somewhere with, good air conditioning, good space. You can see there's a lot of collaboration happens. A lot of people think of coding as, sitting there and typing away, but it's really not like that anymore. It's very collaborative.
Yeah, people huddle together, right?
Yep, a lot of that. And in our conference room, we have big whiteboards. A lot of arguments get settled with a whiteboard pen and sitting down and talking.
Today in shorts and a t-shirt, clutching a coffee and mixing with his staff, it's clear why Mr Hall's been called an unlikely chief executive. But to him, it's just a better way to work. He pegs his own salary to no more than 10% above the highest paid employee. There's a flat structure and profit sharing with the game designers. And then there's unlimited leave. Yes, there's really no limit to how much leave a person can take.
Unlimited annual leave means you take as much leave as you want, or essentially as much leave as you can while still doing your work. We have people shortly heading away on overseas trips and stuff like that. They've still been able to enjoy Christmas with their family. They've been able to go out and enjoy the beautiful weather and stuff like that. And we think it's not just about being altruistic or anything, it's just good business.
But no limits at all. People could just take the year off and you keep paying them.
If they do their job, absolutely. And why not? And in fact, if we can discover people who can do a year's worth of work in a month, I mean, wow, imagine if we had a whole company full of those people.
Rocketworks is Dunedin crossed with Silicon Valley. And Dean Hall says he's lobbying every politician who'll listen to get law changes to support these Silicon Valley-style contracts, much better than the minimums. He's now attracting high flyers from the biggest gaming studios in the world. The creative director is Rashad Derrick, who's moved from the US to Germany to London, then last April, Dunedin, and he's loving it.
It's a really good corporate shift. So when you've come from like a lot of the Western developers that really do have, a crunch culture, you really do work long hours, not by choice all the time. So it's like even shifting out of that mindset is, kind of challenging sometimes. But I think it's one of the things that people who are looking for something different, who are the kind of people we attract, that's one of the things that they get and they embrace.
And Dean Hall has another big aim too, to build $1 billion industry which employs legions of creative New Zealanders. People like Sean Hammond from Kaitaia, who used to design graphics interfaces at home for fun, and now has his dream job.
It's kind of changed my outlook on life a little bit, actually. Going from, not thinking I could get into the game industry at all, or making actually a decent break into it, to kind of, not knowing what I can actually do in the next 5 years or so. It might be a lot more.
Sean Hammond says people who hear he has unlimited leave think he must slack around, but he says it's the opposite. He says the studio's work culture makes him want to work harder and see how far he can go. In Dunedin, for Checkpoint, Ian Telfer.
It is 30 seconds away from the news at 6 o'clock. Katrina is sitting beside me, ready to go after Katrina and the news. We will have, we hope, good news from off Golden Bay, where 200 whales are still out at sea. They are not coming into shore. It's high tide about now. We hope they stay there. We're also going back to Australia for more on those fires and the latest from Hawke's Bay and the fire there. Coming up to 6.
RNZ News at 6. Ngā mihi nui, good evening. Ko Katrina Batten tēnei. 3 large fires are burning in rural Hawke's Bay. The most active is blazing over 130 hectares on Waimarama Road above the Tukituki River. At least one house has been destroyed. The Hastings District Council says more than 100 cars and 2 busloads of children have been evacuated from Waimarama. The Hastings Principal Rural Fire Officer Trevor Mitchell says the fire is only 50% contained and is still burning on forestry land.
That's the one that we're really struggling to contain at the moment. The wind is starting to ease up, but we've got about 20 odd fire units attached to that fire at the moment, plus working with 6 helicopters.
Trevor Mitchell says the dry, windy fire conditions are the worst in living memory. The Mayor of Hastings, Lawrence Yule, says they've had to bring in officers from around the country to combat the 3 large fires near Waimarama. Power has been cut off to about 700 people in Waimarama and Ocean Beach, some 30 kilometres away from the fire, but this is a precaution. Lawrence Yule says their firefighting resources have been stretched thin.
It has stretched all our resources, and we've decided to declare a state of emergency because if we have another fire, or even 2 small ones, but a big fire, we don't actually have the resources to be able to put it out. We are bringing fire crews in from Auckland, Taranaki, 50 extra firefighters here, and a tactical unit from Wellington has been flown up this afternoon.
Lawrence Yule. Waimarama residents are being urged to conserve water as there's only about 2 days' supply left. A woman has been injured jumping out of a moving car after the driver tried to abduct her in central Auckland. The police say she'd been forced into the car by a man while walking along Ian McKinnon Drive just before 2 o'clock this afternoon. They say she jumped out in nearby Copeland Street and a witness who saw it called 111. The woman is in hospital in a moderate condition and detectives are with her. The driver and the car are missing. The police say it's believed to be a grey or silver mid-sized SUV similar to a RAV4 or a Honda CR-V. They believe only the driver was in the car. The government says it will not be supporting the Domestic Violence Leave Bill, but the bill, which would give victims of domestic abuse 10 days of paid leave to help them improve their situation, is not dead in the water yet. The Māori and ACT parties say they'll support the bill at its first reading is March the 8th. The Minister for Workplace Relations, Michael Woodhouse, says while the government is sympathetic to the aims of the bill, the extra leave would have significant costs attached to it. A spokesperson for the United Future leader, Peter Dunn, says he won't disclose his position until he votes on Wednesday. New Zealand First says it's undecided. A woman who abandoned her 2 children while living in New Zealand illegally has been sentenced to 2.5 years in prison. Uroa Chin appeared today in the Auckland District Court. Edward Gay reports.
Judge Claire Ryan said Chin used a stolen driver's licence as identification at Auckland Hospital when she had her first child, a girl, in 2006. In 2007, she never returned from work to pick up her daughter from her landlord, who was looking after the child. She was eventually taken by Child, Youth and Family. In 2012, Chin used a second stolen document, a passport, when she gave birth to her son. 3 years later, she left the boy in the care of a family she knew, saying she was in bad health. She was also convicted of bank fraud. Chin will be deported once she's served her sentence. Ko Edward Gay aho.
Dunedin houses and businesses have been flooded after hail and thunder hit the city this afternoon. The storm hit at about 4 o'clock, turning streets into rivers. The Dunedin City Council says about 14 houses have been affected by flooding and many South Dunedin streets had flooding issues. Dunedin's After Hours Medical Centre has had to close for the night due to flooding, and those with an emergency are being told to go to Dunedin Hospital. The Department of Conservation says conditions are too rough in Golden Bay to monitor by boat a large pod of whales at risk of stranding. DOC staff have been watching a pod of about 200 pilot whales milling around below the base of Farewell Spit at Taupata Point. DOC says staff will monitor the situation from the shore as the tide is going out. A woman at Farewell Spit, Jo Wheaton, says the beach is closed as the cleanup is underway to deal with hundreds of whale carcasses from the previous strandings.
They've kind of got like a digger out there at the moment and then another large truck, and they're sort of lifting the whales and putting them onto the truck. And then I believe that's going to drive further down the spit past where people are allowed to walk.
Jo Wheaton. It's 6:05. To sport, the Crusaders and All Blacks utility back Israel Dagg has revealed he was ready to leave New Zealand last year. Dagg has re-signed with New Zealand Rugby through until the 2019 World Cup instead of accepting big offers from Japanese and Irish clubs. The 28-year-old was dropped from the All Blacks for the 2015 World Cup and says he was 90% ready to leave the country before last year's resurgence in the black jersey.
If I'm going to be honest, I went down with my agent last April and I said, let's go. And he said to me, okay, I'll put this in front of you. If you play every test and we get to the end of the year, are you still going to want to go? And I said, yep. And then things went okay and I just had an enjoyable year. And if I'm going to be honest, I probably lost the passion and love for the game and I wasn't enjoying it. But last year I enjoyed it.
Israel Dagg. A delayed flight appears to have hindered the South African cricket team's preparations ahead of the Black Caps series in New Zealand. The Proteas play one warm-up game against New Zealand A tomorrow before starting their month-long series against the Black Caps in Auckland on Friday. The team was meant to arrive in the country yesterday morning, but didn't arrive until late last night. Captain Faf du Plessis says the situation is less than ideal.
The scheduling now is obviously a lot around the IPL and the Champions Trophy, so now it's just to try and squeeze everything in. This is a very busy tour for us. We were hoping for some time off to see the beautiful country, but it doesn't look like there's going to be a lot of time for that. But that's obviously from a cricket perspective, that's good because you're playing a lot of cricket.
South African cricket captain Faf du Plessis. That's the news.
Tonight on Nights, the lost notes of Laura Sullivan. She collects the shopping lists, reminders, motivational mementos and secret messages others leave behind. Now she's made them into an exhibition. While our astronomer Alan Gilmore has some good and bad news. Bad news for any astronaut wishing to fly economy class to Mars, but good news for those worried the universe is going to peter out into nothingness. On Nights with me, Brian Crump, from after the news at 7 on RNZ National.
Met Service weather now through to midnight tomorrow. Northland, Auckland, Coromandel and Bay of Plenty. Mostly cloudy, occasional rain or drizzle developing this evening. From Gisborne to Wairarapa, mainly fine. A few spots of rain in central Hawke's Bay and Wairarapa today. Hawke's Bay and Gisborne tomorrow. Waikato, Waitomo, Taupo and Taumaranui. Occasional rain, possibly heavy for a time tomorrow morning, easing to a few showers tomorrow afternoon. Taranaki and Taihape through to Wellington. Fine spells increasing this afternoon with remaining rain in Taranaki and Taihape clearing. A few showers tomorrow, mainly in the afternoon. Nelson and Marlborough mainly fine, brief rain tomorrow morning. Bulla to Fiordland, showers, some heavy with possible thunderstorms from Westland southwards today. Some heavy showers from Fiordland tomorrow. Canterbury, fine spells and a few showers. Otago and Southland, showers, some heavy with possible thunderstorms about eastern Otago today. Fine spells increasing inland and in the east tomorrow. And the Chatham Islands, mostly cloudy, showers this afternoon and again late tomorrow. It's 6:08 and you're listening to Checkpoint.
Thank you very much indeed, Katrina. That rain, if it comes, will be most welcome in Hawke's Bay, right?
I reckon. Can't come soon enough.
Yep. A state of emergency has been declared in the Hastings district because multiple fires are burning. The most active is blazing over 130 hectares on and around Waimarama Road above the Tukituki River. That's just southeast of Havelock North, really. At least one house has been destroyed. Van Howard is the owner of Tom's Cottages, just on the other side of the Tukituki River from the fire. He says the conditions, more than 30 degrees and very windy, are really prime fire conditions.
On the opposite side of our river, it's very dry here, and the caught fire, what looks like in a limestone quarry area, and it's just gone straight up the sides of the hills, and it's now just encroaching on the Craggy Range forest. But it looks to me as if it's covering an area from where we can see of about 10 hectares. It's gone over the hill past Lake Lopez, and we understand that 2 houses have been burnt out.
Van Hout says the position of the fire is making it very difficult for firefighters to get to. Only a limited number of roads into that area, but helicopters are dousing the fire with buckets of water taken from the Tukituki River.
I can't see any fire trucks at the moment, but there were 2 or 3 there. They're right up on the top of the hill, and they look as if they're on guard. There's a house up there that has had fire right round it, and they look as if they're up there just sort of guarding the fire, trying to keep it. The fire's gone out, but I think they're just damping down hot spots up there. But it's in the forest. It is inaccessible for fire engines.
Power has been turned off at Ocean Beach and Waimarama as a precautionary move. The road to Waimarama has been closed. It is expected to reopen this evening. That was Van Howard, who lives very near where the biggest fire is burning. There are 3 or 4 other blazes, but they are smaller and under control. Let's go to Australia, where fires are burning on such a scale and at such speed that at one stage there were almost 100 different blazes in New South Wales alone. Intense heat, strong winds and dry pasture and vegetation mean the flames are fast moving and change direction with wind gusts. But unlike the Victorian fires of 2009, in which 173 people died, here there were more warnings, fewer people, and the flames somehow stayed away from population centres. Even so, in Cassilis, a tiny community of about 300 people, properties have been lost. Among them, Warren Jarvis, whose home, farm and animals are all gone.
My house and all my property's totally gone. 33 greyhounds, upper cats, all my chooks, probably my sheep and my cattle.
That was Warren Jarvis. While we're on the subject of fires, we just have some breaking news. There is a fire near the Halswell Quarry in Christchurch. A viewer, Christine, has just sent in a picture. It looks like a suburban area very close to homes. I don't know whether, in fact, it is a home. Francina and Ron are saying they can see smoke from their house in Hoonhay. In fact, lots of reports now coming in of a large blaze. We are making calls now and we will update you on that as soon as we possibly can. So yes, there is a large blaze burning in what looks like a built-up suburban area in Christchurch near the Halswell Quarry. The moment we know more, we'll update you. That was Warren Jarvis speaking to the ABC before, the man who lost his farm in the fires in New South Wales. Wayne Bedgewood is Mayor of Upper Hunter Shire, which is very near. In fact, I think Warren's farm was in the Shire. Property damage throughout the Shire hasn't been great, but fires are now burning over a huge area. Today has been better and cooler, but yesterday in New South Wales was unbelievable.
At its worst, we had 47-degree heat and 50 to 60 kilometre an hour winds, which made it an actually extremely critical fire situation. And to the credit of our rural fire service, they had let everybody know the day before. That actually sent text and phone messages to everyone in the region to let them know that we had extreme conditions and that to be on guard. But obviously the worst happened and we've had to pick up the pieces.
I've just looked at a Rural Fire Service tweet that says today has been the most dangerous day of fire conditions in New South Wales history, full stop. Yeah, so it was
extraordinary conditions, and I've been in some pretty hot days and pretty hot weather. I came from Queensland originally, but this would be the worst conditions I'd personally seen.
Really? How long have you been in New South Wales for?
About 30 years now.
So it's the worst conditions you've seen in 30 years? Well, in fact, plus, you're including Queensland as well. And so how on earth did the Rural Fire Service fight this?
Look, to be honest, they were up against it, but to their credit, I think there were something like 50 fires within the state all up at any one stage. And the bulk of this fire was in another shire, so our neighbouring shire, which is the Warrumbungle Shire.
Yeah.
And their control centre was down at Coonabarabran, and they were controlling it from there. But obviously we set up an emergency operations centre in Merriwar, which is probably half an hour away from the town of Cassilis. Now, that's still within our shire borders, and that was the town most at risk and the area that all of the people were evacuated from. So it's probably about 150 people in the town or not too far outside of it. All of those people were asked to move, and the bulk of them were sent to Merriwar. Some headed in other directions, but the fire obviously limited where they could go.
Yeah.
Some people actually chose to stay on their properties, which is the wrong thing to do, but all we can do is advise people to move and ask them to do so.
And have you any idea how many people have lost their properties?
Look, at this moment in time in our shire, we have 3 homes and properties destroyed, but we can't confirm anything because the fire's still going. So we can't actually get people into the burnt-out regions to find out just what's there and what's not.
That's Wayne Bedgewood, who is the mayor of a district in New South Wales. 50,000 hectares of either burning or burnt land in that state. As you heard Wayne say, over 200 kilometres of perimeter around those fires. We're going to go to Christchurch now, where breaking news, in fact, it's you who are breaking it to us, you wonderful listeners and viewers who are contacting us in great numbers. We've got Patrick O'Sullivan on the phone. Hi, Patrick. Thank you so much for joining us. Where are you, Patrick?
We're at the bottom of Lansdowne Valley on Old Tie Tap Road.
Okay, I know exactly where you are. And you are looking across at what?
The hillside to the right has got 2 banks of fires, one going off to the left and one going off to the right. There's a whole load of houses up the top there, the new subdivisions and divided farms. It appears to have jumped the road already, so those people up there won't be able to get out on the road. As the wind's swirling around, the fire changes direction. So at the moment it's heading more off to the left and up the hill, but a moment ago the wind had changed and it was burning across to the right and to the south. There's quite a lot of sheep and farmers up there who have already asked if they can relocate stock. But yeah, it's probably covered 15, 20 hectares. You'll probably hear the fire engines go past.
Yes, I can. I can hear them. So they're approaching you. Gosh, you're not that far away from it. We've got Christine Watson, who was obviously a listener, has mailed in a photo which shows flames. So I can see empty land behind it, which I presume the sheep are on. But in the foreground, there are a lot of homes. So that's an area which has been developed. New homes there, and in fact, Kelvin, our brilliant director, has just put the photo up. So new homes in the foreground, empty land beyond it. So this is very close to houses. It may in fact be a house.
The 2 houses that you can see are probably the least of the 8 or 9 houses that are further up the valley on the right-hand side. The road up to those houses goes up on the right, and the fire has definitely jumped it up there. And Katie Ward, if you're up there, please stay safe. A friend of mine lives up the top there.
Right. Okay. And Kristen Watson,
sorry. I'll send you some video.
Okay, we'll put that up the moment it arrives. Thank you. And it's Kristen Watson, not Christine. Kristen, thank you so much for that. We really appreciate your photo. Patrick, just before you go, how much smoke is there?
A lot. I could see it all the way from coming in towards Hallswell.
Wow, okay. Is it near the quarry? That's what Kristen says.
No, it's over the hill from the quarry.
Okay, thanks so much, Patrick. We really appreciate it. So for those of you who know Christchurch, you'll know exactly where we are. It does look like a large blaze. As Patrick was saying, a little bit of wind pushing it around in Christchurch. We will update you with the fire services as the moment we get more. Obviously, Radio New Zealand News, RNZ News is on to this, and they will be updating you throughout throughout the night. If you are heading towards that region at the moment, we warmly recommend to allow emergency services in and people to get out, that you do not go there. Right, we're going to go to Wales now. As we go to air tonight, not Wales the country, but unfortunately Wales in Golden Bay, as we go to air tonight, about 200 pilot whales are in danger of restranding in the sea off Taupata Point on the western side of Golden Bay. The Department of Conservation says conditions are too rough to monitor the large pod of whales by boat. We spoke to Project Jonah before, who said there are about 200 around and they are circling near the coast. They are believed to be the same whales that were in the bay yesterday. Some of them, in fact, beached themselves and were assisted back out to sea. Meanwhile, hundreds of whale carcasses from one of the country's biggest recorded whale strandings are already strewn not too far away along Farewell Spit. Our reporter Tracy Neal reports on the grisly and unpleasant task of disposing of the carcasses.
There's a less than romantic side to whale strandings, and it includes the clean-up afterwards. Staff from the Department of Conservation were back on the remote and windswept beach today to begin the grim process of getting rid of the whale carcasses. Project Jonah lost more than $6,000 of rescue equipment in the effort. Andrew Lamison from DOC says this morning's task involved poking holes in the whales to prevent the carcasses from exploding or drifting out to sea as they decompose. He says they would use knives and would be trialling long needles.
But I've got a couple of the guys down at the local Fonterra factory making up a couple of big stainless steel hypodermic needles, more or less, sort of 2 metre long needles, and we're going to give those a trial as well. We're going to get, we've got big PVC bibs and face shields we'll put on, and you proceed cautiously.
Mr Lamison says about 180 of the whales were generally in one cluster across a 500-metre stretch of the beach. The carcasses will then be moved up to a closed nature reserve where they will be left to decompose in the dunes. He says there's a need to move with some haste.
Over the space of a couple of days, most of these things are sort of distended and there's guts popping out of them. So that's why we're moving with a bit of pace now. These things have been sitting on the beach for, I think, what are we now, day 4, some of them. So, yeah, they're pretty ripe.
The aim afterwards is to construct a fence to prevent the whales drifting out to sea, and then bring the stragglers spread over the sand flats into the pen. Volunteer Rebecca Hayter of Golden Bay, who helped with the whale rescue over the weekend, says she wasn't prepared for the tough, unpleasant work.
I hadn't realised there's quite some physical risk. You're in the water with a lot of faeces and urine, and Project Jonah people warn you that when they blow through their blowhole to stay away from that because there might be bacteria in it. And I just kind of hadn't thought of that aspect of it.
Ms Hayter says she was, however, pleased to have been part of the rescue bid. Darren Grover says he marvelled at the effort of so many.
When people come together from all walks of life, there were locals, there were people who came from all points of New Zealand and different agencies as well. When they all come together and they all work together and collaborate, it's just an example of what you can achieve when you all pull together.
As for the theories as to why these whales stranded, Andrew Lamison has one more he calls the circle of life.
They're in here, they're chasing fish. The fish do what they can, swim into more and more shallows. The pilot whales go in beyond where they should and get trapped. Yeah, it's a cunning plan for fish.
DOC says it will use scientific analysis to try and find the cause of the mass strandings. Biopsy samples would be taken from the dead whales and analysed. For Checkpoint, Tracy Neal.
Just working to get details on those fires in Christchurch. Sorry, that fire in Christchurch, we will have that shortly. Before then, relieved Jetstar passengers have touched down in Auckland this afternoon, almost 24 hours after their plane broke down at Dunedin Airport. The flight was due to leave yesterday afternoon, but the airline was unable to find an engineer to fix a mechanical problem. Passengers complained of being on board the flight for hours before it was cancelled and offered only glasses of water and $8 meal vouchers. Zach Fleming spoke to passengers just after they touched down.
We didn't really get much information yesterday. We were in the airport from 3:30 to about midnight when we finally got off the plane. So we'd been in and out of the airport. We got boarded twice. The second time, 10 o'clock, they said the plane was all right and fixed, and we sat there for 2 hours and had a free drink of water, and that was about it.
I mean, it was a bit of a drag being on board and then having to disembark, but at the end of the day, nobody wants to be in a plane that doesn't work, do they? So no, it was a long night and missed work today, and that's a bit of a pain, but I'd rather they fixed it than be on a plane that doesn't work.
Well, we got there to the airport at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and we were there until midnight before they decided to take us off the plane again, and then so we're on the plane once, then off again, and then on again, and then so, and then we got to go and stay, and we didn't get to the hotel until about 2 o'clock in the morning. So
Not much sleep then?
No, I should have about 3. It was about 3 before we got to bed. And then we had to get back out to the airport and then wait again because the crew had to have their stand down time before they could fly again. So it was. That's right, we're all here now, we're all happy.
It was disappointing because they said that they were very sure it was going to leave at 10,
and then it didn't leave at 10, you know, we had to get on the plane and off the plane and back on the plane. Then we're waiting on the plane for 3 hours, and then at midnight, that was it. You know.
It can be easy with
and it was very difficult with a 3.5-year-old.
One passenger from Turkey was only visiting New Zealand for 2 days. Seems extraordinary, and told Zach the delay had ruined her first and probably last visit to New Zealand.
Can you imagine if our flight takes 40 hours, and we didn't cancel our hotel reservation. We paid because we didn't cancel our whale watching tours and hobbiting tours.
So you're supposed to be in New Zealand for 2 days and you spent one of these days at the airport?
Sorry?
So you're supposed to be in New Zealand for just 2 days and you spent one of the days at the airport?
Yes. Now tomorrow we will go to Turkey back, and we have no time to whale watching and hobbiting. We are very sorry.
A statement, Jetstar says it apologises to its customers for the engineering delay, but it always puts safety ahead of schedule. It says passengers were accommodated in hotels overnight where required and provided with meal vouchers. Lots and lots of news unfolding tonight, breaking, developing all over the place. The police believe the abduction of a woman in a central Auckland street was sexually motivated. The woman in her 20s is in a stable condition in hospital after she jumped out of a moving car at around 2 o'clock this afternoon. The police say she'd been forced into the car by an unknown man whilst walking along Hazlitt Street, which is off Ian McKinnon Drive in Eden Terrace. It's not far from Dominion Road. They say she jumped out in nearby Copeland Street, and a witness who saw it called 111. Detective Senior Sergeant Glenn Baldwin says they have a clear description of the man.
A male Māori or Pacific Islander, aged in his 30s. He is described to be of large build, between 100 and 184 centimetres tall, with tattoos on both arms. He was wearing a red and white checked shirt with a grey t-shirt underneath. The car is described as a dark silver or grey, medium-sized SUV, a similar size to a RAV4 or Honda CR-V. We are not yet clear on the make of the car. It is described as being clean inside.
Detective Senior Sergeant Glenn Baldwin says he knows this will be alarming to people across Auckland, but he says the police are doing everything possible to find the man. That happened this afternoon, and that media conference that DSS Baldwin was talking at was at about 5:30, so an hour ago or so. We haven't had any sport tonight. It's been all over the place with breaking news everywhere. So let's just update you all on Izzy Dag. New Zealand Rugby has convinced yet another top player to stay. This time it's Crusaders and All Black utility back Israel Dag. Dag has signed on until the 2019 Rugby World Cup in Japan, until after it, obviously. The 28-year-old was instrumental in the All Blacks' success at the 2011 World Cup, was dumped for the 2015 competition after a drop in form following injury, lack of confidence. Last year, Dag was reintroduced to the All Blacks environment and flourished both on the wing and at fullback. The re-signing will come as welcome news to All Black coach Steve Hansen, with Highlanders fullback Ben Smith also recommitting last week. These people are being offered huge money from Europe, particularly France, huge sums. Dag talked to reporters at Christchurch Airport about the reasons behind his decision to stay.
Big decision. I'm going to become a father in April. That was probably one of the main factors. Taking my son over there, he would have been only about 4 months old. No support for my wife and myself, so that's probably the biggest factor. And I love New Zealand. I love playing footy here. I feel like I'm only 28, going on 29 this year. I feel like I've got more juice in these legs. So, if I wanted to go overseas and play competitive footy, there's no need when you can play it here. So for me, I'm loving playing with this Crusaders team. New environment, new culture this year, and I'm just looking forward to it.
Can you explain how difficult it was, given that we hear the big numbers from clubs over there?
Yeah, it was very difficult. Obviously, you got to think about the future, and obviously everything doesn't go to plan, as you all know from 2015. So there's a lot of thinking, and that's why it took a long time. But for me, I just had to sit down and with my wife and my agent and go through a few factors, and we decided we're pretty well set up here. We love it. She probably gave it away with her Instagram by painting up the nursery and everything like that. But we're all set up at home and just enjoying it.
Did you discuss with Ben Smith, given that you're going to both cover the same position?
You know, like, that's the thing. This was about me, my family, and my future. Obviously, competition and positions is great. It's great for the country, and for me, I just want to be playing footy. And if I'm playing fullback, if I'm playing wing, whatever. If I'm in the squad, just supporting the team. For me, I've just wanted to cement my future for the next few years, and I've decided it, and I'm here till end of 2019, and I'm happy.
Izzy Dagg explaining his decision to stay with the All Blacks until after the 2019 Rugby World Cup. Lots to update you on. The whales are still offshore. They are not beaching themselves. The people who are working to create a wall of boats and noise to keep them out, about 200 whales off Golden Bay, seem at the moment to be successful in their mission. Some of these whales have come around from farewells, but some of them actually beached and then got back out to sea. They're now just offshore, worryingly close. In Christchurch, lots of smoke over Littleton Harbour, over the hill from Lansdowne Valley. This is text coming in from listeners in Christchurch. Kelvin's just put up a big plume of smoke heading up over the Port Hills. The smoke has just turned from white to black. A listener saying a very bad sign. The smoke from Hellswell Quarry fires pouring over the Port Hills, almost like clouds. Smoke dropping down into Governor's Bay. Littleton Harbour easing off after 180-degree wind shift. Smoke heading over the peninsula. RNZ News will update this throughout the night. There is a big fire that is underway in Christchurch. Thank you for being with us. We'll be back tomorrow at 5.
RNZ News headlines at 6:30. 37 people have been evacuated from 20 houses on Craggy Range Road, near where a huge fire is burning on Waimarama Road in rural Hawke's Bay. The fire has destroyed a house. The Hastings District Council says cell phone coverage in the area may also be lost because of damage from the fire. The council says another wildfire is burning near the Puketitiri Road, while a third in Colin White Road in Pokawa is contained. A grass fire in Ensley Road, Havelock North, is out. Meanwhile, firefighters are battling a large scrub fire on the Port Hills near Christchurch, and farmers are moving stock to safety. In Dunedin, houses and businesses have been flooded after hail and thunder hit the city this afternoon. The police believe the abduction of a woman